Another one of my friends is here. Hey, everybody. I'm Salenna Green, and this is the Hot Girls Healing Podcast. Okay, so today we are talking to one of the baddest to ever do it. One of my friends. She is an artist. She is a baddie. She is a game designer. Okay. She is a speaker. She is a healer. The list goes on and on. Like, if there's, she's every woman. It's all in her. Yes.
I am somebody who gets into a lot of trouble and ends up doing the most, and then is like, hey, I have the most. Why don't I do more? And then tells no one about it. But y'all, so thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be on your podcast, and I love the mission of it, and I can't wait to get started on today's topic.
Yes. Okay, but before that, because this one likes to hide. This one likes to act like they ain't out here. They not making waves. They're not living Black history. I want you to say more about who you are and what you do in these streets.
Okay. All right, well, my name is Sydney Adams. I am a senior game designer at Take-Two Interactive currently. But the big thing is I'm a game designer. I am most known for a product called Black is Magic, which was a limited Magic the Gathering product that celebrated Black life, and I wrote articles about it, and it was kind of like my love letter to the Black community of that gaming group. And it was also philanthropic, so we raised almost $1 million for Black Girls Code, which is an organization I used to volunteer at when I was a student, so it felt like a nice, like, full circle type of moment. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think of myself as an activist within the gaming space, like, by necessity. Like, it's one of those things where, like, I didn't necessarily want to be a voice in the community or to talk about those types of things, but I felt myself continually drawn into it and drawn into instances where I felt the need to stand up for myself or stand up for what I believed in or how I wanted to be portrayed, and understood, like, that systematically there's just a lot of things that have to be fixed. So, like, I take it upon myself to be a voice in that way. So I've spoken at, like, the Strong Museum of Play during the Women's and Game celebration. I did a talk on the value of vision, creating games that have meaning and purpose for game devs of color. Like, I spoke on NPR. Like, this is all the stuff that I usually gloss over, but I'm working on it. I'm in a season of, like, appreciating what I'm doing and how I'm going through the world. And,
yes.
Right now I am also working on some personal projects. I'm working with my mother, who's in education, to potentially come up with some curriculum that mixes, like, English language, like, goals and curriculum with game design curriculum in a way to be able to engage, like, bad students, or quote-unquote bad students, the ones who want to play games and they don't think are smart, but like, don't understand the transference of these ideas, and to sort of widen their view of what it could be, or even just get the concept of game design into their into their heads younger. Because I didn't even think about game design until I was in my 20s, because just the possibility did not even exist. Like, especially when they pitch to you, I think, in some ways, that you are a consumer of these things, but not necessarily that you can be a creator. So, like, as a creator, I want to influence younger generations to create, and also, you know, figure out my own journey as a creator, as a designer, as somebody who's still growing and trying to figure out, like, what has meaning to me. So it's like, I'm a practicing artist, but also, like, a mentor to people who are behind me.
Yes, and this is so important. Do you see why I need you to talk your shit? Do you see?
No, it's important. You know, like, you know, and I have intersections. You know, I'm originally from New York. I'm now out here in the Pacific, you know, Northwest coast, whatever you want to call it. We in the right place. We in Seattle. But, you know, my dad is Guyanese, I'm Caribbean, you know, like, just all the intersections of what it means to be the child of immigrants, to be a Black person, to be a woman, to, you know, to be queer, just to be all the things that I am, and how that makes me walk through the world, and how that influences my view, and the ways in which I see myself reflected, in the ways in which I see myself misconstrued, and how that impacts my own healing journey, like how that impacts my interest, how that creates even guilt around some of the things that I like that continue to further, especially when it comes to games, right? Like the things that you have to accept because that's all that exists, but you have problems with. You know, like new black characters being introduced to games, and you're like, I'm glad that they're there. Not a single person consulted on that hair. Black people have more hairstyles than afros and locks. Like, I could go into a whole diatribe, but like, I am hoping to come in as a force of change, and I'm still young in my journey, but I have managed to accomplish a lot more than I thought I would have. At this point.
You're so cute. Talking about you're wanting to come in as a force of change. You are a force of change already. Like, you are so, literally so inspiring. You are, look, show it off proudly. That's what we're here to talk about today. Blerd life, okay? This is what a blerd looks like, okay?
Yes.
This is what a blerd looks like.
You can be cute and smart. Like, I chose, like, look at my little geometric specs. For the listeners, I have these cool glasses that, I started collecting glasses because I've been sight impaired since I was like 8. Like, I've been blind for the longest. And back then, the only frames you could get were those solid black, like Irving from, like, Billy and Mandy type situations. Like,
yes, I too wore glasses as a kid.
Just those, like, go ahead and pick on me glasses, right? Like, and so, like, yeah, like, I'm so happy now that I'm an adult and I don't have to choose the pre-selection of whatever glasses comes with my insurance. So,
the struggle!
Listen.
Don't take me there. Don't take me there.
Okay, back to Blerd. Yes, so, why don't we start with a definition? What is being a Blerd to you?
Yeah, that's actually my first question for you, because I didn't look up Blerd. Like, usually when I'm getting ready for one of my episodes, I'll like go to Google or I'll go to Twitter. I mean, Twitter is usually having, you know, on and off discussions about what it's about, like to be a Blerd. Do black girls like Blerd guys? Do Blerd guys like black girls? Like, that's the basic.
Listen, I try to. Twitter, a lot of the social media I don't engage with as much. Like, I go on for like specific things, like, ooh, I wonder what's going on in this thing, or that fandom. Or, like, if something's trending, I'm like, ooh, who in trouble? You know?
Yeah, let me see right, but I didn't see what so much social media had to say about what defined the Blerd, though. So, just from my own, like, being out there, I would say, you know, Blerd, somebody who like comics, if you like video games, if you like to read, if you like, you know, like, the definition, it describes us, really. Like, that's why I want to have this discussion with you, because the more I was scrolling on Twitter and the more I was seeing the discourse, I was like, oh, is there, are we, was Blerd really, like, I found some things out that I didn't know about being a Blerd.
Listen, I'm about to put on my little Oxford English major undergrad hat right now. Write this down. So, Blerd is a black nerd. So the thing to define is nerd, I think, and I guess a nerd in the way that it was intended to be, though, listen, we could talk about the way that it's changed, is basically somebody who is into very niche types of things that in the larger society could be seen as taboo or like childish or unsightly. Like, the idea that you are really into something that the larger community is not. So, like...
Or has left behind long ago.
Or, yes, exactly.
Like, those are childish things.
Exactly. Something that you have to let go of. And your continued interest or investment into it, or, like, self-identification around it, is unusual. It's a sort of fanaticism. Like, the way that people talk about otaku, right? People who are super into Japanese culture. Like, being an otaku, in its original term and meaning, was a bit of an insult, because it's just like, you're obsessed with this stuff. You, like, there's always the undercurrent of there's something else you should be doing when it comes to like nerd things. So, like, people who started probably being like, yeah, I'm an otaku. Like, it was revolutionary at the time because it was like, yeah, I am embracing this thing that you are trying to use to shame me. Like, I think of it in terms of, like, the same, like, with the slut walk, where, like, this is a word that was...
This reclamation.
In the reclamation of it. So, like, with Blerd, I think that the word was... I don't know, I can't say to the current, that's why I keep saying was, but in my understanding when it first came out, it was the assertion that first we did exist, because there was the idea that nerdiness or nerd types of things were only
wasn't black
to our white characters. Yeah, it was non-black. So we had to be like, no, there's tons of us. Like, there's not a single black person I've met in our age group who has not seen anime. Like, they may not love
Come
it,
on.
it. Like, if I say who Goku is, you know who it is. So you can't tell me, like, and there had to be so
against my will
continually to, like, push the narrative, like, that exists. Like, when people were like, oh, Meg Thee Stallion, she made anime references, but, like, she watches anime. Like, I'm just like, yes, we all do. Like, it's highly entertaining. A lot of it is not for children. It has, like, depth to it, or it was a coming of age story around the same time we were coming of age. Like, there's so much depth to it. But then when we get to games and entertainment, right? Like, I inherited, honestly, like, I feel like I am a second to third generation Blerd, right? My mother was the original Blerd.
Yes.
She introduced me to games. My dad introduced me to comics, and so I inherited both of those loves from them. And then, like, a lot of the experiences that I had early on were single player. Like, my mom had the original, like, Legend of Zelda, and, like, so I was playing a lot of Zelda games, a lot of Mario, a lot of Sonic, a lot of, like, DDR,
classics.
like things where you're basically locked into your own experience. So I never really knew that being a Blerd, quote unquote, was an unusual or, like, an outlying thing until I started joining the larger gaming community. Until I started doing multiplayer things and doing MMORPGs and realizing, like, oh, you don't expect me to be here, and you're kind of not sure how to treat me, and
yes, that's a common experience. Like, not only for me, like, did I not know that being a Blerd was even a thing until I, start talking and hearing outside of my own household, because, like you're saying, my mama is the reason why I knew comic books, the reason why I know Marvel or DC, Capcom. Like, she's the reason why I love reading. Like, this is generational. So in my family, we're all doing it. I didn't even know it was a thing. And that's what I'm also seeing other black Blerds say, that they didn't know it was weird until, well, some people said at school they found out that it was weird. Yeah, but also in engaging with other communities where that racism tends to come in, was where a lot of Blerds found out that, we were actually othered in these spaces because the way that we engaged with it was so personal and individual.
Exactly. And I feel like that is, like, I didn't fully understand that consciousness as a child when it was happening. Like, I understood it later. Like, the example that I have is, like, I went to Japan, right? Because, like, whether that gets me additional Blerd cred or not, it is what it is.
It happened.
Japanese is an intermediate language for an honors course that I was doing. So, like, I was like, I'm going to take the authentic experience. And I just really wanted to go. I went to Fukuoka. I studied at Chikushijo Gakuen, which is an all-female university in an exchange program, because I was really trying to become fluent. Ooh, Lord, poor me. I don't speak a word of it right now. I'm working on it. But that experience actually made me realize things that were, like, intricately American. Like, I never felt American here. Like, I born and raised, but, like, my experience is of blackness. It's not of Americanness, if that makes sense. Being fully removed from what you consider to be typical and then put into an environment that's just completely opposite. So, like, in Japan, where there's more of a monolithic, like, society, I would get stared at, people would look at me, but nobody was mean to me on a racial basis. Like, it was more so like, oh, you're a foreigner. and you're an American foreigner, and we have these assumptions about Americans, and this is why we treat you this way, or this is why we're curious about this, or this is why we ask these sort of questions about things. Like I remember I was talking with this girl who was another exchange student from Taiwan, and I loved her so much. Hope she's doing well. And she told me that like later on, once we had been friends, she told me like people were telling her that Americans wouldn't talk to her if she didn't speak good English. So she was scared that like when we were first interacting that I was going to be mean about her English. She said she didn't feel that at all. So she knew that it wasn't true. But like it's the idea that like when you go into an environment, people have an idea of who you are, and when you change that, they either learn from it or they are affronted by being wrong. And so that's
I was going to say it's usually that threat response.
Exactly. So that like affront of like I am a fish out of water, and that sort of solidifies the things that I realize are American about me, right? Like my way of talking, my way of dealing with things is the same feeling I had being interested in all these niche things and the nerd things, and then being put in the nerd quote unquote community and realizing like, oh, like I'm a fish out of water and I have to sort of like prove that I belong. Like I remember some of my friends would like test me like on my nerd stuff, like the nerd pisses me off. It's just like, oh, have you read the latest Naruto? I'm like, yeah, I'm all caught up. What you mean? I've been had these scanlations, and they just like, you didn't finish it. I'm like, yeah, and I'm thinking, I know I finished. How you telling me I didn't finish it? And then they'd be like, okay, well, what happened after Haku?
Then it's trivia time.
Yeah, no, like I love Robin. No, I love Robin. Oh yeah? Well, what's his real name? Dick Grayson. Stop asking me questions. I already know. What's the color of his eyes behind his mask? Like, just things that I knew, and I'm like, I don't know why I have to prove this to you about my husband, but it's fine. Like, you know, like, just
people be like so 13. Turned up.
So turned
they be
up.
so turned up. Like, that's something for me, like, fire. I be trolling too much when it comes to things, because people, like, really be so serious. And I'm like, baby, I'm not about to do no trivia with you. Like, I don't fucking care.
I'm a troll now. Like, back then, I just wanted acceptance. I was just like, oh my god, I'm so excited to see a group of people who are also into, like, super, like, there's a part of my nerdness, and we can talk about it. Like, do you feel like there's a part of you that's like, okay, I have nerd good taste, but I also have nerd trash taste? Like, there's a part of me that's like,
no, like, Sid, I'm for real finding out right now that there's levels to this shit, and I don't, like, I wrote down, like, while you're talking, I said, Japanese Blerd level, question mark? Is there a level to blurredness? Like, if you learn Japanese, you level up, or you get a certain amount of stars? Like, I don't think I actually am that much of a blerd. Like, I think I'm just, like, in the family, but I'm not, like, I'm like the cousin at the Blerd table who like on their phone. Like that's me in the Blerd family.
There's different types. I think that there's like a prototypical like standard of like some nerd things. So like if you're into like anime and stuff, like one thing that's super cringy that's like, oh yeah, you're a nerd, is like incorporating Japanese words that just into your regular language. So like if we were just talking like this, and I was just like, Nani? Like, what?
Oh my god, no! No, so because my husband does not. He says Nani.
That's a nerd marker.
To the point where I now say it.
Yeah, so that's you. So you are part of the Japanese nerds. You didn't realize it. Welcome. Just machide. You know, just.
I recently found out like opaime.
Oh yeah, no. If you switch to the Korean languages as well, you know, if you know how to say stuff, just random, specific to shows or television in different languages, only because you consume that content, that is a demarcation of nerdness.
Okay, well, I'm gonna sit with that and heal, because I don't know how I feel about that. It's just like the anime leg of. the anime leg of being a Blerd is always the one that I just feel the most like about,
over.
you know?
Yeah.
It's not even shame. Is it shame? I think it might be.
It's a little
I was going to say it's not shame. I just don't want to be associated. And I was like, oh, shoot.
Why? Well, why? Because you don't listen.
Because y'all be doing the most.
I can give you an informal quiz. Have you ever done the Naruto run with your arms behind you?
I plead the fifth.
If you've ever done the Naruto run, if you've ever inserted random Japanese into a conversation that was full English, like...
Your Honor, I plead the fifth so that I do not incriminate myself.
All right, you know what? But anyways, there's different levels. Like, and I think that's why like nerd culture is becoming so mainstream, and in some ways that is also altering what it used to be. Because like I don't know if kids feel shame about nerddom anymore. Like I think to a degree,
I never did.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like a little type of way because I was extreme. Like I was.
Yeah, I think he was on a higher level. Like I could blend in with the general population.
I was
right when it came to like Avatar. Right when we was talking Avatar, I cannot pretend. We can debate it. We can go all the way through the Legend of Korra. I got opinions. Okay.
Yes.
But like outside of that, like I'm not going to be super passionate.
Sal, I think you're in denial. You watched both Avatar and Korra, like. The original with Aang and Korra, like, okay, go ahead and pretend.
Multiple times, and maybe starting my rewatch soon. I don't know.
Listen,
but I'm like, is the Avatar like deeply anime? Like, I'm not like.
Okay,
my
well,
husband,
I mean,
he into Death Note.
Whether or not it is or is not anime, because technically, there's so like
all my shows are debatable. All my shows are debatable. All my niggas is debatable. Okay.
Listen, it's a cartoon though, and you can't say watching a cartoon as an adult is considered a non-nerd thing. And I love cartoons.
Say that.
So that's not going to be.
I do. I'm rewatching Totally Spies right now.
Oh my god. Okay, which spy were you?
I was Clover. Okay, not because I wanted to be, but again, I always had to be the blonde growing up because. Yeah, girl, right. Okay, I'm a little ditzy sometimes.
It's okay. The thing is, I wanted to be Alex because I thought I was Alex, but because I was like, oh, black girl Alex. But like, I'm not. I know I'm not. I'm the redhead with issues, trying to keep everything under control. I'm that blossom. Wait, I'm mad about it.
I'm not good with names because I swear I thought Alex was the redhead. What is the black-haired girl's name? I'm like currently watching it terrible with names. I don't know it. It's Alex, Clover, and Sam. Sam is the.
And then there's Mandy, who's like a chick who they added after, who's just like cool,
irrelevant,
like doesn't have an identity outside of. Okay, irrelevant.
So yes, she's like the fourth charmed sister, right? Like
she's like the fourth like Powerpuff girl, bunny or whatever, depending on which version. They added a black one in the new thing. They're like, your first sister is they made like two. They keep trying to bring back Powerpuff Girls in ways that will be relevant to today. And I really love their attempts, but they don't nail it. They don't understand it. So yes, in the newest version that was released in like 2016, they made a new black girl called Bliss. So her name's Blisstina Utonium. Like her real name's like. Okay,
I low key love her name, Blisstina. So cute.
Listen, it's Bliss. Oh Lord,
so cute.
But yes, Miss Bliss is a little black girl, and she was the first person that Utonium created. But like, she ended up having like a whole meltdown because of her powers. Like anytime she got emotional, she would lose control of her powers. So she decided to like run away and like basically fake her own death because she felt responsible for the professor. Like she felt like she was a danger to herself and everyone else. So she decided to live.
I find this to be a racial microaggression.
It's the way that it was, and they didn't realize it.
I'm like,
it's just like she don't have support from her single daddy. And so she takes it upon herself to correct it. He don't look for her. He assumes she's dead. And then creates 3 more perfect little girls in her place. And then she shows up at the end, all problematic. And they're like, we love her. Look at our sister. And he's like, she's dangerous. But I loved her too. Like, anyways, she works it out.
Okay.
She's their long lost sister, and yeah, like she's got cool powers and whatever. But it was weird because I'm like, this feels like a pandering for like diversity, but at the same time, like I'm not mad at being able to be like it's one of those like I'm happy to have it. I'm not certain about the execution, and that happens a lot within the nerd community.
You don't it? And within the Black community. Okay, say that. This is an interesting intersection to be at, because while I am happy, like in my mind, the Powerpuff Girls are Black. But, obviously, in their creator's mind, we may disagree. I don't know. I've never talked to them. But in my mind, they're Black.
Hands.
So,
like, I mean, the Chemical X song. You remember?
I read a random tweet that was like something like that, you know, about cartoon like making that's like seems random but is really specific. And apparently the design for Powerpuff Girls was really intentional. Them not having hands and all that. Flat on one side, round on the other. Like, I don't know. Somebody had some thoughts about that.
It's very strange when you think about it. Like, but we weren't thinking too hard because just like, yeah, no, they can pick things up and they can throw things and they can punch you with their nubs. and nobody else here got nubs, but like that's fine. Like that's
right, and they're cute. They're powerful. They're girls. They were, you know, they were powerful. Like for me, it was the power. Like when I was a kid, I was like, I might want some power. Whatever the situations I was in, I was like, I need more power. Yes.
It was the fact that they were like little girls knocking the teeth out of monsters, knocking the snot out of things.
Yes.
Like, it was visceral. Like, I remember the episode when Bubbles went hardcore. Remember that one? Where like her sisters were clowning her for being soft. And then she had to be like, I'm gonna be hardcore now. And then she actually went like super hardcore and like defended them, and then was like, oh, I can be hardcore and soft. And I'm like, this is a lesson I need to take in.
Yes.
Like, I didn't know it then, but I'm like, yes.
I love Bubbles.
Experience. But yes, you are Bubbles.
I told you Powerpuff Girls were Black. Like, as Blerds, I feel like we get something different out of the stories that we watch. I find this all the time. We relate to the material in a way that is different from other communities, in a way that is very us. And I just love it. I love that for us. And I love that. And we're proudly Blerds now. And you're right, the conversation around Blerds, are we still having the same one? Yes, we are. Are we still debating whether Blerds like are dateable? Sure, to a certain degree. But I would say more largely, like, people know that Blerds are dateable, right? We see Black men who are Blerds out there happily married to Black Blerd women, or Black women who aren't Blerds, or whoever else who is or isn't a Blerd. So we know that Blerds can be compatible. My advice to Blerds who feel like, look, I'm just saying being a Blerd ain't what's making you undateable. Being a Blerd ain't what's making these people undateable. You gotta look within, BB. Okay?
It's
being a Blerd isn't what makes you undateable. It's not being a Blerd. It's something else.
Yes. I don't understand the dateable aspect, because it's like, I don't know, like, from what perspective is being passionate about something making you less appealing? Like, you wouldn't say, oh, the dude who's super into sports is undateable, or like the girl who's super into, like, you know, making sure that her nails is did and her hair is done is undateable. But these are
well, maybe somebody. Yeah, I don't want a sports dude personally.
I don't want someone who's high maintenance, quote unquote. But it's just like, you know, I think that there's a weird, I think with nerds, right, the concept of nerddom, like, I think people confuse nerds and dorks, or like geeks, like those weird subgroups, and there could be a whole discussion. But the idea is, like, nerds are
there may be overlap
about something, and then dorks or geeks or whatever you want to call it, like, they have a social ineptitude that like they sometimes overcome through being a nerd, because that's sort of forced socialization in the things that they enjoy. So, like, the idea that, like, if you're a Blerd, you then have to transference with these other characters, that you are probably, like, not good at talking, don't know how to dress, you know, XYZ, like,
don't smell good.
Yeah, or or the idea that it's like, oh, you know, all you do inside is like, you know, date anime boys and otome games and play games and you don't know how to cook and like, or even just the idea that like I'm interested in something other than like presenting myself in the quote unquote best physical light or the best like social light to be consumed by my partner, as opposed to being like, hey, you play XYZ, you know?
I do feel like there's a different expectation, right? Because while we do see the occasional post of like, you know, a guy playing video games, you know, while his like baby is like laying next to him or what have you, right? So there's the narrative that, you know, the guy who plays too much video games. I feel like that is kind of a blurred critique where they're saying this person is undateable. But I think it's always about like obsession, low-key. Like there's always this like fear that the Blerd is going to be more obsessed with whatever it is that's their thing, whether it's a video game or a board game or an anime that they love. They're going to have more passion for it than they're going to have for their partner. And I'm like, where are we getting this from?
Well, I mean, I think there are people like that, but but they're blaming the wrong thing, right? The accountability should not be on the thing that the person likes. The accountability should be on the person, because it's the same instance as if you have the guy who's not trying to talk to you and watching sports, or you have the guy who's trying to go out with his friends all the time and is not paying attention to you. Like, the issue is the neglect, right? Like, if I'm with somebody and they play games, or even like if I know they have a regular game that happens every time, a certain time, right? But at this particular day I want their attention, or I need them for an emergency, like, the person who I want to be with is going to care about me or understand the prioritization of like what is important, and they're not going to let other things take it, no matter what that thing is.
So let me ask you something. Do you feel like blerds or nerds, people who have these niche interests, are we allowing them to a certain degree to take place of things like intimacy or communication, connection in our relationships that are significant?
I would say absolutely, because I mean, like, specifically, like, I think, like, a lot of the media in terms of games, anime with like 100 XYZ episodes, like, even just cosplay, like, these are things that are time consuming and all encompassing and ultimately escapist, right? Like, we are escaping from like reality, whether we intend to or not, but it sucks you in. Like, good stories suck you in. It could be the same with books, you know, like, and
do not get me started on my books.
Right, fantasy series, like, you know, you don't think of the person reading Tolkien or whatever, like, or a person reading through all the Harry Potter books as like wasting their time, because reading is supposed to be a good thing. listen.
Had to put that in there.
Let's transfer it. Something else. Raven Cycle. You know, like,
yes.
But like, I think ultimately it's like the person who has issues pulling themselves away from reality, like from the reality, like pulling themselves back, to reality, is going to have that issue irregardless of the thing that they're obsessed with. So, like, I also think that people have to understand that there is a level of respect, too, that needs to be applied to blerd activities. Like, if you know, like, I have a D&D campaign every Monday at this time, you can't be mad at me for at that time going to do that and not going to dinner with you. You know, unless you, and if you want me to go to dinner with you at that specific time, I need advance notice so I can let the party know, so that we're not going to have a group, because I am now inconveniencing everybody else who's involved in the process. Like, you know, if you have a raid plan, World of Warcraft, like, that is something that takes time and energy. Like, these are things that people invest in. So, like, if you are with a blerd and you, like, don't respect that aspect of their time, and then every time that they're, like, if they're doing it constantly and that's all they do and they never devote any time to you, that's just a neglectful partner. But if this is just an aspect of their personality, something that they're interested in, like the equivalent of you going to the gym, If every time you want to go to the gym, I'm like, why not spend some time with me? Why you always go to the gym? You know, like
conditioning your body and shit.
Yeah, like why you playing games and getting socialization in this pre-pandemic world? Like, you know, like post-pandemic-y. Like, why you still holding on to it? Like it's a lack of respect. Like, a person who is well-adjusted, right, understands that in a relationship, you prioritize each other. You care about the growth, the spiritual growth, respect, and love between each other. And so, like, anything that comes between that, you will move to the side. But it doesn't mean that those things that you move to the side no longer matter. And I feel like the concept of, like, oh, you need to grow up, you need to cast off childish things, you need to no longer be interested in the things that you loved and spent decades of your life obsessing over, just because I'm here, like, that is a disrespect that I don't think is right. Like, any man who's like, look, I love you, I love everything about you, but you gotta stop gaming. Like, I am a game designer. Like, I am locked into this life. I ain't ever gonna
say that. You know what you're making me think of? You're making me think about how in our communities, and I'll say black communities, right? Because I'm not Guyanese, I'm African American all day. But
Guyana has about kids.
We know, as black community, we know though.
Cricket.
We prioritizing pleasure. Okay. Right? That can be a threatening thing. That can be a scary thing for us.
A selfish thing.
That can be something that comes with a lot of shame and guilt. And it sounds like Blerds, do we maybe know how to prioritize pleasure in our lives just a little bit?
I think so.
I think we might. I think we do.
I think so. Because, like, there's nothing more self-indulgent than, like, playing a game. Like, you're locked into an experience. You're in Stardew Valley being like, yeah, I'm about to make all this type of money. I'm about to work the hell out of this land and get this farm going.
Yeah.
It's the dopamine rush. It's the oxytocin. It's the joy of seeing what you're doing, getting better at a move, and feeling that and knowing that you're taking time to devote to that, even though that feels unnatural to a degree. It does feel unnatural to a degree. And I think that the waste of time, the idea that you should be doing something else that either benefits the community or is responsibility of somebody attached to you. Like, the only time gaming becomes a problem or nerd activities become a problem are when you are with somebody who thinks you should be doing something else.
That's a waste of time.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to tease that out, because I was like, ooh, like, she's getting at something so good right here. As Blerds, really when we prioritize our pleasure, like, that's a space of resistance and a space of healing in the world that we live in today. That's huge, right? Like, that's what this is about. That's why we're talking about Blerd life, because Blerd life has been healing for me. Okay?
Yeah,
and it is something...
Healing.
Please speak.
Yeah, it's games were the first time I got to see myself or start understanding how I saw myself. Like, specifically talking with MMORPGs, right? Because I will say a lot of the early experiences I had, you just had to be the thing that they were giving you. Be
can you say what MMORPG is, just for people who might not know?
Multiplayer, like, online role-playing game. And the MM is, like, massive multiplayer. So
huge maps.
Exactly, like huge maps, multiple servers, and a server is basically the thing that you use to play on, and it can be different geographical locations. So, like, there might be a North American server, an Asia server, and so, like, you can basically choose the experience and the kinds of people that you'll be around, the kinds of languages they may predominantly speak. Like, I've gone on, like, European servers just because I was a nocturnal player, so I'm like, I need to play with the people who gonna be up, but a lot of them are unique in the fact that they have character customization. And character customization, while becoming more popular now, was not always the case, or it came with a lot of limits. Like, you get to be white girl with blonde hair, or red hair, or blue hair. Like, white guy with mustache, or fat white guy. Like, you know, like, and now, like, with MMORPGs, like, you could be an elf, you could be a dwarf, whatever, like, so they had you create skin tones so you could be purple, XYZ, or whatever. And so what they did, which was both lazy and incredibly clever, and people should just keep doing it, is they used the color wheel. Like, the color wheel that you pick when you're doing, like, spot picker or color picker, where, like, there's the dial and it has yellow, and then the yellow bursts into orange, and the oranges burst into red. So, like, you can you can basically get any color that you can fathom if either have the HTML code and you can type it in, or if you can, like, pinpoint the color by, like, just sliding it, figuring it out. So for me, it was a powerful, it was the beginning of self-identification, because when I was making a character and I had the freedom to finally be myself, I had to be like, wait, what color am I? Like, my skin, like, is it closer to this? Is it closer to this? Like, how is the shape of my nose? Should I sculpt it this way? Like, how the shape of my eyes, like, in working carefully, like, even the body
this self-exploration.
Like, exactly. And then how that body was perceived in the MMORPG space. Like, that it was interesting that majority of the characters, no matter what the people look like in real life, were white and or, like, very, very pale. Like, it was interesting that, like, there was a period of time where, like, I was in this guild and I was kicking ass and I was, like, a really good player. But I felt like because I had a black character with dark skin, like, my experience was different than my counterparts. Like, I met people who were racist and were like, I don't typically talk to black people. And, like, we had very interesting conversations. And, like,
it was like on a video game?
Yeah. I mean, like, in a video game. Like, there was this assassin character who he was such a troll. He used to just like, assassins had this, it was in Perfect World, this game. They had this busted mechanic where, like, they could just phase invisible and then just fucking get you and then disappear or whatever. So, like, he would just troll and he just show up, kill me as soon as I got up, show up, kill me again, and I'd be like, look, you win. I don't know what to do. And he'd be like, it's fine, let me help you with this quest. And I'm like, this is a strange interaction, but I'm here for the ride. So, so, like, we became friends. Like, I had this weird thing where, like, the more you antagonized me, the more I wanted to dig and interrogate that. And then they were like, you're kind of cool for taking your lumps. Or, I don't know, that might be some tough love, like, black, like, trauma to deal with. But anyways.
Perhaps.
Yes. Listen. The idea that if somebody's hurting you, it's for your own good. Right? Like, but either way.
Girl, look, I'm like, I have the whole thing with my therapist, child. So,
but yeah,
you are not alone.
He was in, like, North Carolina, and, like, we were talking about race, and I was just like, well, it sucks that, like, I don't even do anything, and people, like, you know, feel, and he's like, I never thought about like that. And just the idea that, like, I was getting it to expose myself to people who hadn't thought about race, or, like, just had assumptions, and that I could coexist with them, but I was also still suffering in a way. Like, if you had pink hair and you were pale, you got yourself a boyfriend, and that boyfriend gave you chests and helped you with quests and all this other stuff. And the only dude that I could nab was the dude who was fake cheating on his girlfriend, and he was a panda. He wasn't even human. And I was just like, this is what I have. This is what I get. Like, but I was like, in the back of my head, I always thought I could just change the color. I could just be white. And then I would have all the stuff, and I get the privilege of being one of these weak chicks without having to deal with this panda bro. And then I just realized, nah, we melanated. My next character was darker. You know?
I know, that's right. Fuck panda bro.
Got this wannabe Pandaren. You know, just trying to, I got Poe up on me, like, yeah, I'll give you some of that, I'll help you with this quest, you know? But, like, yeah, no, it was a good tool. It was overall a really good tool. And I feel like games, like, even when I'm physically sick, games is healing to me. Like, when I first started working in games, I was an intern, and I'm a tryhard, you know that about me. And so I worked myself, like, so hard with just worry and everything that I worked myself, like, into sickness. Like, I got pneumonia in the middle of the summer. Like, I was so stressed out, I was getting hives. Like, I didn't even realize that I was just like, it's the linens. Like, no, it was me. So I got pneumonia, and that was the sickest I'd ever been by myself, because I'd always been in proximity to home in New York.
And family.
While I'm in Washington by myself in a suite. So that's when I played Stardew Valley, because I wanted to be anywhere else than where I was, physically feeling the way that I was. And that's a game where you're playing as a character. You're playing as this farmer, and I just pretended to be her. You know, like, I got married and lived her life, and just fully, like, from the time I woke up to the time I went to sleep, and in between took my medicine and took care of myself. I was just playing that game and trying to not focus on the pain. You know, like, surgeries or anything like that. Like, people who are stuck in the hospital and don't have the physical mobility to do all the things that they want or meet the people that they want can visit those worlds and experience them through the lens of games. Like, games have the ability to encourage empathy. They have the ability to tell stories that we don't typically hear. And the indie community is so exciting because it is a lot of the voices that the mainstream does not allow to come out. Indies themselves have their own issues in terms of, like, who gets publishing and who gets funding and who gets chosen. But games, ultimately, there's always a venue to push out, like, and it's still very undiscovered. Like, it's still behind in a lot of ways from other industries, and it's ahead in other ways. Like, it's behind in terms of, like, the workforce of game designers who are Black, according to, like, the International Game Developers Association survey of, like, 2022. It's only about 3%, 2 to 3% of the game industry working is Black. But, like, if you ask, like, in the same survey, whether diversity is important, 90% of the participants said yes. So
of
you have
course.
90%. Sorry. Oh, we both a little sick today.
Yeah, we are out here recovering.
Wanting, right? And then the actuality is that 2 to 3. So that disconnect, I think, of, like, yeah, we want to be the good guys, but we're not going to do anything to actually change the narrative or create diversity or, like, do anything different, is the frustration that I have with the industry. And so even being labeled as a Blerd feels like another box that's like, how are you going to market to me now that you think I'm a Blerd? Like, what are the things that you think I want to see? Like, is it going to be, like something that bothers me that I'm just tired of seeing is Black characters with a background that's specifically, like, Hard Knock Life Annie type-ish. Like, oh, this guy started with nothing from the tough streets of insert city, and you know, work their way up with their super intelligence or with their skill, and now they're somebody. Like, and it's just like, yeah, no, that's the story for all of us, but that's not the only story.
And the same special Negro narrative that we're putting in movies, that they're telling stories about in magazines, that is on the news, right? We don't need another special Negro. We good.
But, like, you know, that's why, like, I loved Into the Spider-Verse so much. Like, Miles Morales. Like,
I actually did like that one.
Everyone was mad. They were like, oh, we don't want no Black Spider-Man, no. Like, everyone was losing their shit.
Oh, no, I was mad because I said, no, not another Spider-Man, period. No more Spider-Man. No more Spider-Man. No more Spider-Man.
I agree with you on that. I love
It's a hill that I've been willing to die on my entire life. Why are we still making Spider-Man movies? I was done with Tobey Maguire. Tobey Maguire should have been the last Spider-Man. Like, I was, like, we good. Okay, but that being said, I love Miles Morales. Like, he was so cute. He actually made me kind of like Spider-Man. I was like, okay. I hate Spider-Man.
Okay, we'll address this later. We'll drop this off.
If he was better than... Let me not say it.
Spider-Man is a great character, and I'm not gonna take it. You're not gonna take this from me. There's a reason why he's the best, and we're not gonna go through it. But it has a lot to do with his humanity and the way that he deals with situations, and the fact that he wasn't given to him because he was rich or he had superpowers that were spoiled by God or anything. But anyways, we could go through it, and I'll talk to you about why it's interesting later, and I'll give you the correct reading material. But yes, Miles Morales' story is centered on the fact that he was Black Spider-Man, and I appreciated that. Like, I appreciated that he was like, anybody could wear the mask. You could wear the mask. And I'm just like, yes, they are trying to make it a little equalitarian. Like, it doesn't just have to be this black kid, but it is this idea that, like, it is a mantle to be taken, and that we need to stop being so precious about who we believe is the archetype of these mantles. Because otherwise we would... Yeah,
I thought that was a good criticism. Exactly. I did think it was a good criticism.
We wouldn't be losing our minds.
But I'm like, they could have, arguably though, could have...
The archetype is. Arguably though.
But they arguably could have done that without making another Spider-Man movie. That's all I want to say.
No,
right? Like, they could have done the same thing with Batman. They could have done the same thing with Iron Man, Thor.
I don't expect to see another Iron Man 2.
Flash.
I think they're going to work into Ironheart. Okay, listen, I am not the nerd to support you on this. I'm going to be straight up. I almost wonder at this point if I just do this to troll people, because I don't ever get a positive response when I say this. I don't say this to get a positive response. I might even be saying it to troll, but I genuinely have never cared for Spider-Man. That is fine. We just need to find you the right one. It's okay. It's okay. We gonna work it out. I'm gonna leave you on it. I'm gonna pray for you on it. That's all. Like, but
now you go pray for me.
Listen, of all the problematic superheroes in this world, Spider-Man is the one that I relate to the most. Even Wonder Woman, like, carved by a goddess in Amazonia. Themyscira, but, like, and just fully doesn't know, like, her own strength, and just shows up, like, righteous. Like, she's like, I don't know. Wonder Woman even is an interesting thing, because, like, she is a white savior archetype, but, like, starts transforming into a person later. But, like, she shows up specifically to save the world of man. She's like, I am here, and I'm here to fix it all. And then she realizes, like, there's a lot of things that ain't normal. Like, y'all are ridiculous. Y'all are sexist. Y'all are this. Like, she was revolutionary in her time, I think. Because she was a woman superhero, and there weren't many, if any, when she was introduced. And then, her power set, very cool. Lasso of Truth, those bulletproof gauntlets. But also, she kind of got to, like, start easing the nerd population into the idea of sexism being a problem. Like, a lot of these characters had sort of hidden agendas to go through. Like Luke Cage being, like, a previously incarcerated, like, guy. Like, even the things that were bad kind of showed, like, from a research type of perspective, what people thought about people at the time, or what people thought people would gravitate to or relate to or think about. Like, and the fact that we are now in a position where when we're remaking these things, we have to figure out how to fix the problems and how to make them palatable for an audience that is a little bit more aware of the inner workings. Like, it's interesting, because it's like, I have a question for you. Do you think that you have to be intelligent to be a Blerd?
No.
Okay.
I mean, to a certain extent, you just gotta like bright colors, right? Like, we was just talking about cartoons, and right, like, you gotta like bright colors, maybe a little tune. But I do appreciate this relationship of art responding to life that we're kind of discussing here. And
I think of my fandoms as art. That's why I analyze them from a more intelligent perspective. And that's why I wonder if other nerds are also having this thought, like, are also having these realizations, or if I'm just here, like, a mad scientist in, like, my room, just being like, just Midoriya, just writing in my notebook and muttering to myself. But,
I mean, it's still about you and how you're approaching it. So, I mean, of course, all Blerds aren't smart. All black people aren't smart. So we already know that all Blerds can't be smart.
But it's the idea that nerds are smart. That is a stereotype that, like, they expect you to be some type of Poindexter type ish.
It's like,
they don't necessarily expect it if you're a Blerd.
For me, I would expect a nerd to be really smart or informative about at least one thing, right? Because it's, again, this hyper focus on one thing can make someone a nerd. you don't, it's that person who, like, they relate everything to science or, some mathematical, like, that's the archetype. That person is obsessed with math or obsessed with science, and that's what's making them a nerd. So I think that you could be obsessed with anime and still uphold sexism, homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia. Like, you could do it all if you wanted to. Yes. But I think that, just like you're saying, you show up in those spaces as yourself. So if you're going to show up in those spaces and be homophobic and sexist and transphobic and et cetera, just know that you're going to be bumping up against those people in that space, and you go get the smoke, because people exist in these spaces, and they're just as entitled to it as you are. Basic white man who I'm probably talking to. So,
And that's the thing that I think comes out once community gets together. So, like, at cons. Like, there was a weird, controversy, and it's still semi-ongoing, about the idea that when you cosplay, you need to go for realism. So that black people could not cosplay as characters that were not black. And I remember there were whole lists of, like, acceptable, like, black people you could cosplay. And I remember going through those lists and checking to see if they added anything new. Because at the same time, I'm like, I don't necessarily want to do this other person. But then I'm like, yeah, like, why am I limited? Why can't I be Sailor Moon? Why can't I be XYZ? Like, why do I have to always be in a black archetype? But, if you're white or Asian or anybody else with a lighter complexion, you can be anything you want. Because
all the cosplayers that I
represent you.
Right, all the cosplayers that I follow are black, and they love to remind these white people those characters are not white either. They're Asian. So
they
have the list. And I appreciate them for doing so. I'm not a huge cosplayer because I've always been too poor, but I do plan to start engaging more. I do plan to engage more now that, we grown. We're planning on going to, a Comic-Con. So we're going to be out here. Black people, we're engaging more and more in prioritizing our pleasures. So this is a space that you can expect to see more and more black people. The black cosplayers that I follow literally slay that shit every fucking time.
They have no choice. You have to show up correct. Because the cosplay community will run you whether or not you are, like, in general. They're very cutthroat about making sure you get it right. And then putting on an additional layer of being a minority, it's just like you get vitriol from people either way at times. So I'm really happy about this embracing of joy that we seem to be doing. And I feel like it also just comes from the realization that Black people are at least the ones that at least in my consciousness, right? I won't say that this is a universal thing. Black people are not a monolith. Let's say it over and over. Black people are not a monolith. Saying this does not mean it's just always true. But
it can be true for you.
It is true for me. I'm noticing that less Black people are asking for permission and are just engaging in the things that we like. I feel like growing up, there were spaces that I just felt like I could not access, that I was barred from, either financially, because like you said, who has the money to get, like, foam that you can heat to turn into the shield, and who has the spray paint, and who knows how to sew and has the sewing machine, like, just the things that I did not have access for, or the games that I could not buy because I didn't have the console, and then each thing is $50, $60. Like, when I would get games, it would be around a reason. Like, I did not grow up in an environment where I could be like, hey, Ma, the new XYZ is out. Can I get it? Like, if it wasn't my birthday, if it wasn't Christmas, like, why am I getting stuff? So, like, now that I'm in a place where I can indulge, I make my own money, I live my own life, I can have the things that I want to have, I no longer have to ask permission from my parents or my guardians for financial support. I no longer have to ask permission from my peer group. Because the people that I have in my group right now are not people who are going to be like, oh, you're playing this? Why are you playing that? That game's trash. Like, overall, I think in the journey of self-healing and self-love and embracing the things that we enjoy, we are learning to just take it. Like, if you wait for permission, you may never get that permission, and then you don't get to enjoy the thing that you want. So, like, I'm noticing that more people are just going for it. And when you go for it, nobody can really stop you. Like, that's what I realized. Like,
yeah.
what you gonna do? Show up in my house and knock the console out of my hand? I'll knock the teeth out of your mouth. Like, go ahead, show up in my house.
She said,
right? Scraps for my Sonic, you know? About to go buck over this bendy.
Yes. Oh man, I love it. I love this, this podcast, I feel like, is a part of that wavelength that you're talking about, this reclaiming of joy. Black people, we taking up space. We're not asking for permission. We are here, and we are healing.
We are everywhere.
And we are full people with all this dimension and all this multitude. And it's what a time to be here.
What a time to be here. And what a time to enjoy that and laugh. And like, we have moments where we were talking serious and we have moments when we were laughing. And that's what life should be. It shouldn't all be like, I need to talk about the critical race theory that is destroying the country. And sometimes I just want to talk about like why Princess Peach and this character seem like they got a secret situation going on, but nobody talking about it. You know, like,
look,
what's her situation?
And that's that Blerd life, right? That's that Blerd life, because there are theories that they run in a scam on Mario and Luigi.
Yes.
Right? Like Princess Peach and Bowser. I've seen the theories. They got this theory that Princess Peach and Bowser are running a scam on Mario and Luigi.
Baby mama.
Okay, so this is the stuff we can engage in if we give ourselves permission.
Yes.
Right? It don't gotta be about who's dateable. It can be about the secrets that Princess Peach has. We know she have them.
Yeah.
Okay?
And it can be about bringing the community together. Like, we need to stop telling people that there are rules for these communities, that there are things that you can do or can't do, as long as, like the line I will draw in the sand, you are not harming the dignity or well-being of anybody else. The dignity and well-being of anybody else needs to be preserved, because that is just being a good human general. But like, you telling me like, oh, you're not dateable if you play this game, or like, I don't know if you're the things that you like that now you've given me. Like, I didn't call myself a Blerd. You said I'm a Blerd because I like these things. You created the definition. You put me in the box, and now you're telling me because I'm in this box, I am no longer XYZ. I'm no longer attractive, socially acceptable, da-da-da-da-da. But, like, if I was, like, oh, if you're a baddie, like, there's now a list of things that you do need to have to be a baddie. And then if you're a baddie, oh, that must mean that you're also, you're cocky and you don't deal with broke people. And, like there's always another division. And I know that we understood in the world into labels. Like, it is helpful to have labels to understand, but I think that it is not helpful to have labels to divide. And more than often when we see, like, why couldn't we just be nerds? Like, the reason why we had to be Blerds is visibility. That was the only reason, right? In my opinion, that was the only reason that mattered. So now that we have the visibility, us furthering the narrative that we are different than other nerds, right? Another othering of our community. So we don't like or act the same way, when in some ways we do, right? And then another othering in terms of like, okay, well, if you are black and you're a nerd, how do you behave, and how does this affect your socioeconomic status? Like, now you're no longer appealing, or now you are extra appealing because that's the kind of girl I need in my life. And then if I act a certain way and you're like, oh, this is not the fantasy archetype that I created for you in my mind, then all of a sudden I'm no longer valid. Like, nah. At the end of the day, I'm Sydney, and that's it.
It quickly becomes way too much. And I think that could be applied to, any label or any performance that we're perpetuating, right? That's why this podcast is about authenticity and just being ourselves. Because we could take the label Blerd or hot girl or baddie or artist, right? Or healer or any of the things that we are, queer people. We could take those labels and be like, oh, I have to wear my hair. Like, I used to think those things about my appearance. Oh, I have to dress a certain way or look a certain way. And letting go of those things has helped me to just be myself so much. I dress better now that I let go of what I thought the way I dressed was going to make someone perceive of me. And like, oh, I have to dress this way because now no. Like, we don't have to do nothing because we Blerds. We are Blerds either because we said so, right? Or because
Yes.
we said so. I think that's it. We Blerds because we said so. And that means whatever it means to us. Okay, because this is a process of reclamation. This is us reclaiming our power, reclaiming our identities, reclaiming our truths and who we say we are.
Yes.
And that's that on that.
And that's that on that. I love that.
All right, y'all. I'm Salenna Green, and this is the Hot Girls Healing Podcast. We'll see y'all next time. Say stop recording.